Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I'm just about to water my mounts and I thought I'll film them so that we can discuss why they are still mounted and whether they are not staying in that state long. Some are, some aren't, but we'll go over why. I've just been through my notes and I had one too many. Number of mounts in notes, so one's gone missing. Obviously that died and I didn't update my notes, but I identified which one, so the list in my notes is now the same as the one rack over here. So I'll pull them across and I've got to water them anyway. We'll have a look at each one and just chat about why they're on a mount and whether they're going to stay on a mount or not. Right. First off, this is the little Orchids, and it's sort of okay. It's currently in bloom. Blooms are attractive. It's quite a few little plantlets, so it would separate quite nicely. Now, it's starting to go downhill very, very slowly. And the way I'm noticing that is the change in the colour of the leaves. They're starting to get a bit paler. Now that could be because it's getting too much light. That is a possibility. I will check that. Obviously I can look it up, or I've actually got an encyclopedia of Orchids. So I will do both and I'll check this one's needs, and if it's a shady plant, then I'll just put it somewhere more shady and see if the colour comes back. It has got root tips, it's got active root tips on it, and it has a lovely plant there that would separate off quite nicely. So my initial plan is first of all to look up to see if this needs more shade, because this is very bright out here, and then if it does, try that without doing anything else. If that's not the problem, then I'm going to separate off this piece, leave the rest as it is for now, and separate off a piece and pot it up separately. It's a separate plant anyway, so it's not like it's, you know, being separated from like a mother plant. There's quite a few little plantlets here, but for the time being it stays on its mount. Now obviously with plants that need a drier winter rest, or need to be an awful lot drier in winter, they are much easier to accommodate on a mount than they are in a pot, because they're going to dry naturally even in the winter quite quickly. Yeah, but now this is the one out of the two. This is the one that didn't get deleted in the notes. This is Glomeratum. No tag obviously, otherwise it would have made life easy, wasn't it? But the giveaway was that this one was remounted with sphagnum moss and the other one wasn't. So it was the other one that was missing, and that was an Igneo niveum or something or other. But this one has got some root activity going on. It hasn't done much since it was put on this mount with the sphagnum, but it is still growing. It does have an active growing cane. This is a cooler grower by definition. So, you know, it should do okay in here. I did have one round the other place that grew a ridiculously gigantic cane, those of you that remember, and that didn't make it. Yeah, so I'm hoping that this one, having come into this environment, has acclimatised and should grow on. But I'm surprised there hasn't been a new growth from the base, but nonetheless the plant has life in it. So that stays there. That's been recently, relatively recently, remounted with live sphagnum moss. Now this is my Friedrichianum, and this is in a state. Now what we've got here are a lot of kikis. These very soon will be separated. That's ready to separate now. That one's roots with just a tiny little shoot, that's no good yet. And these two haven't got open leaves yet, so they're not ready. and then there's some other little tiny ones as well. But this one is ready. Now I've got a choice. I can let that one grow on and wait for the others, or do that one as a separate entity. I haven't decided yet. The plant itself I thought was dead. I thought I'd lost it. But it has started to grow again here with roots. These look like new canes coming from the base, but I think they may well be kikis. The main plant appears to have died, but there's a shoot down there, one there and one there, that are all coming off the base of the plant. So this is coming off of this mount. This was put on with live moss, our native moss. That seems to have been the demise of quite a few plants, and it has a tangle of old dead roots that are no good to anybody, man or beast, as they say. So the plan is to take this off the mount, possibly discard this side of the plant, and keep this part of the plant here and replant it in a pot. It's a pendulous grower, so it's one of those pots that the pot itself might have to have a wire around the rim and be hung on my rack, but I want it in a pot. It could go back on the New Zealand sphagnum moss, because round the other place it did well on that for a long time until it started to change, and I thought, right, we'll try it with some live moss, and quite honestly it went downhill from then on. But it did change environments as well. When you've got several things that have changed, it's very difficult to actually pinpoint the thing that's caused the problem. It could be all of them. But so we're going to try and save this piece of the main plant, get it going in a pot, and plant the kikis up separately to save the plant. This is an awarded plant with a unique name. The kikis maintain that name. So that's that one. Yes I did. I was going to say I didn't water Glomerulus. Now what I do with this one is I hold it over here and make sure the kikis get watered. So I pour water over the kikis. And this helps acclimatise them to having some water on the roots. And this water's got some feed in it as well, so it helps establish them as plants in their own right, if you see what I mean. Just helps them get going. And then once I've done that, I come back round here and water the main plant. It's got some growing roots on it now, so you know, if I'm going to take this off and put it in a pot, it needs to be reasonably soon. But I'd like to see a bit more in the way of roots first. So it's on hold. It's coming off the mount. Some of the plant will be discarded. The kikis will get removed, and we'll go from there. We obviously can't lose that plant, can we? That wouldn't be good. Right, then round the other side we've got Cattleya cernua. Now this wasn't long taken off the mount because it was failing, and it was remounted with some New Zealand moss. Old bits were discarded. Now the trouble is with this plant, it doesn't do anything for over 6 months of the year. It just sits there, and that's what it's doing now, but it's still losing some leaves. But this should come back into growth soon. I say should. It hasn't done it yet. It tends to do, well, in actual fact there is just there on the end, I doubt if you can see that, there's a tiny little new growth there. So maybe it's going to come back into growth. It blooms around Christmas time, sometimes a bit before, sometimes a bit after. Sort of from late November onwards it blooms. To bloom it has to mature a new growth, but they grow quickly. So it's around about now that it starts to move, you know, and then you'll get new growths with new roots, and then as the leaves open, as the growth matures, the buds are inside the leaf ready to go. So that's how it grows. The leaf, If you think about what a cattleya normally does, it has leaves and most of them have a sheath. The leaf is the sheath on this. They are one and the same. It only has one leaf per pseudobulb, and the buds are inside that leaf. So it is the sheath at the same time. But I've been keeping this relatively dry because it's not growing, but I'm increasing the watering now because I think it's going to come back into growth, and we'll see what it does. It's a long way from the plant it once was. This plant got a first at the Bournemouth Orchid Society at our Christmas party from, you know, once upon a time. It wouldn't do it now, would it? But so that's staying on its mount and hopefully coming back into growth very, very soon. Well, it's sort of started, but not much going on. Right, this is Dendrobium Nestor. This is going in the bin, but I'm keeping my eye on this kiki. I've already taken some kikis off and potted them, and they're coming on okay. I'm going to do the same with this one, but the roots on that are a bit thin on the ground to take it off yet, so I'm watching what's happening here. Yeah, there's no point in watering the base of this plant. It's dead. It's all shriveled. It's dead. So that will go in the bin. But I want to save that kiki to go with the other couple. So all I do with this at the moment is just water the kiki, because it's not going to get much sustenance from the base of the plant, is it? So I give the whole thing a good soak, the leaves, the roots and the surrounding cane. You never know, the cane might absorb some of that moisture. And I'm keeping my eye on it. If the kiki looks like it's starting to fade, I will take it off immediately and pot it. But I just want the roots to be a bit bigger. It's got some nice open leaves, so it's, you know, it should be okay. Right, and then we've got here, what have we got here? What we've got here is a not doing very well, a phyllum. Now this was the original plant, again, taken off a mount with the New Zealand sphagnum moss that was old and tired, and our native live moss used, and since then it hasn't grown very well. You can see the pattern here. So these were kikis planted last year that have done next to nothing this year, as have these down here, but there's a new one grown there. This is a new one that's grown from the base of the plant, so this is a new cane. It has stopped growing and the end leaves have died, so it's now not going to grow any longer. And then down here are a couple of kikis that have died. So something's going wrong with this now. And I've lost the opportunity to take these kikis off. As it happens, that doesn't matter that much. So this needs to come off, the good bits, which is this bit here, that little group there, and this bit here. Trim the old canes off and replant that, possibly in a pot, maybe back on a mount with the New Zealand moss. But we've got two buds there. I don't know what those are going to be. If they're going to be blooms, it's a strange time of year for this to be blooming. It's a late winter, early spring bloomer. So we'll see what happens. So all I'm doing with this at the moment is just trying to keep the parts of the plant that are in the moss actually alive, until I get round to doing something with it, which ought to be reasonably soon, doesn't it? Seeing as the kikis on it are now lost, whatever those two buds are, they can be sacrificed either way. So we need to get these three parts off of this mount and probably remounted with the New Zealand moss. I'll show you why. So that's that one. And then this one is Dendrobium phyllum as well, with kikis that were planted up on a mount with the New Zealand moss. I think you'd agree they're doing a little bit better than the last lot we've just looked at. It's the moss, I'm convinced. My plants in this environment do not like our native moss. There's something about it that just doesn't work. So these are coming on okay. It's possible, even though these were kikis that were planted up, it's possible we might get some blooms on this next year. But what I'm hoping for with this is that next year we get good growth from the base of all of these plants, and if we can get 1 or 2 growths from each one of these, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 on there. If we can get a new cane off of each of those, we've then got some reasonable sized plants. That's doing fine, that stays as it is. And the last one is very sad. This is Dendrobium jenkinsii. What a mess compared with what this once was. Now, I was given this to try as an experiment, and being a low mat forming orchid, I thought jenkinsii would be a good candidate to try on this, but it's not happy. We have got some new growths, and we've also lost a lot. This is a failing plant. This has to come off of this mount. See, we've got a new growth here, another one here that's already shriveled, and it shouldn't have done. So we've got one little bit of plant there that can be rescued, and not much else. There's a nice strong new growth here, so that this portion here could probably be kept, and this little piece here, that's a new growth. But that's not doing very well at all. So that's got to come off. This is not a good time of year to be doing this sort of thing. But, you know, I'll try and keep it hydrated. But this plant hasn't taken to this tree fern stuff, hasn't taken to it at all. So it's not necessarily the tree fern itself, it could be the tree fern in this environment. Combination of the two. But if we don't do something with this relatively soon, we will lose the whole thing. So this will be a rescue. I might even do that tomorrow. What am I doing today? Now at the moment my car is in the menders. So that's it, those are the mounts. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to, well, I've got some deep water. I'm going to put my air plants into soak. These get forgotten, they're all shriveled, they're not doing very well at all. I keep forgetting I've got them, I know they're under my nose. So every now and again I give them a dunk and leave them to soak for a bit. Try and rehydrate them a bit, but they could do with just being strapped on a piece of wood or something, rather than just left aerial like that. So don't forget I haven't got as high humidity in this place as I had in the last place. I'm just going to get my towel. Ugh. The other place had high humidity all the time, hardly ever watered them there. And of course that's got into my head, so I hardly ever water them here, and they need more. I know they're air plants, but they can't stay bone dry in a dry atmosphere for too long. They don't do very well. So there we are, that's the state of play with the mounts and the planned work and why. And the main thing to consider is that the mounts in general did very, very well at the last place, and I stacked loads of things on mounts. You know, they were Oncidium types, Catbia types, all sorts. They went on mounts, and in the main they flourished. With the move of the house and this environment, they're not flourishing, as you can see, and that's what's left. There's been a lot that have been lost and a lot that have been taken off of mounts and put in pots. So that's where we are, and you can see there is still a little bit of work to do by either remounting or taking things off of mounts. So that will be work to do in the near future, not in the far future. What are we, Wednesday? Yeah, my car's in having the electrics looked at on the driver's door because the control panel's got no power on it at all. Now I had a look on the internet, and it says on this particular car it's a little bit notorious for having problems with the connection between the car chassis and the driver's door. Now obviously when a door opens, the wires have got to be able to move, so there's a connector goes through there, and there are problems that occur in that area, including the connector itself. You know, there's two like things that plug together there to be able to separate the bit in the door from the bit in the car. Anyway, this morning I had to go out and blow my tyre up again. This tyre that hasn't got a puncture. I spent 15 to 20 minutes with a guy in a tyre place with that wheel in the water bin, submerged, and not one bubble came off of that tyre. So we declared there was nothing wrong with it. So how come every couple of weeks I have to put air in it because it goes down? Goes down about 10 to 12 pounds in about 10 days. So, you know, obviously every now and again I need to blow it up. So I needed to do that this morning. And while I was doing it, I opened the driver's door and I thought, right, this is the bit where there's a problem in here somewhere, and the electrics came on. So wiggling that bit fixed it. I'll say fixed it, made it work for now. There's a problem there somewhere. There's a loose wire, something a little bit dodgy with the connector, or there's a wire that's got some shielding that touches the chassis every now and again and goes to earth and loses the power that way. There's something not right in that bit. So when I took it in, Jamie wasn't there as usual. I think he spends his life in bed nowadays. But I had to talk to the lady who books everything in and explained that being an electrical problem, sometimes it can be very difficult to know where to start looking. And I said, it's in that bit between the door and the car, because I wiggled it and the power came back on. Well, that didn't wiggle anything up the other end of the car, did it? So it's that something is wrong in that bit there. So at least he knows where to look now. So hopefully by the end of today we'll have had a chance to have a look and found something wrong. You know, it won't be a broken wire. It's unlikely to be a wire that's completely broken. But it could be a wire that's loose in its connection, and by wiggling it, it's sort of retouched it. But hopefully you'll find what's wrong, and I'll get the car back today. To get a bus home. They've changed all the buses, the public transport. There used to be a little local bus that went from Christchurch, the town nearby, out to this village and back again, and then up to the other end. Just did sort of like a small route, but it was once an hour. You know, so all that's changed now. The bus that comes here starts in Bournemouth. So it comes from all the way from Bournemouth, goes round Southbourne, which is following the coastline, into Christchurch, back round, out to the village where I am, and back round again. So I can walk up the end of the road now and get a bus to Bournemouth with a bus pass, free. Without having to pay to park, right into the centre of town. And we might do that because I said on the gardening channel I wouldn't mind filming some gardens that are open to the public, and Bournemouth gardens can be pretty special. So we may take a trip into Bournemouth. Anyway, and that bus is now half an hour, every half an hour, so I didn't have to wait that long, although it was 10 minutes late. They get caught up in traffic that time of day. You know, that was like 9:30 in the morning. So, yes, so that's where we are. Work to do on some mounts. There's not much work left to do on anything that's in pots, that's for sure. That will be next year now, you know, when we come back round to the main repotting season. But there is some work to do there, which we will possibly get on with. If I don't do it this week, it will be next week. So we'll see how we go. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. For those that are interested, whatever the time is now, it's coming up to lunchtime. What I'm proposing to do on the bonsai channel is benchmark my trees. So I'm going to bring each tree in here one at a time and do a short clip of what it looks like. The equivalent of like a photo, if you see what I mean. So I'm actually going to produce a bonsai video today. I haven't done one for about a month. No gardening video today, but Carol is in the process of hopefully getting another box of plants to come through, which we'll get sorted out, and we'll go from there. So I've got a cat hair in my mouth. Whoa, drives me up the wall. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.